Ryan Smith, CEO and co-founder of Qualtrics. Thank you so much for being part of Three Questions.
Hey, thanks, Bob, for having me.
Now, Qualtrics isn't a word that many people hear very often, except for the occasional business article or segment on TV that way. And yet the company is now a multi-billion-dollar company headquartered in Provo, Utah. Tell us, what is Qualtrics, what does it do, and how does it do it?
Yeah, so we're a tech company. We started 16 years ago, and our goal is we developed a technology platform for experience management, which is the market kind of heats up where everything becomes commoditized. Experiences are actually really what we're competing on. So we power all the customer feedback for the world, all the employee experience that happens. Anytime you want to assess or you want to be able to understand how a brand or a product is really being received and the experience of it, they can do it all on Qualtrics. So Qualtrics is allowing thousands and thousands of organizations to basically go out and get human sentiment about how they're doing. Both externally with their customer base and internally with their people.
Online surveys, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, that's one of the ways to gather it. I mean, we're much more than surveys. We probably have 15 different ways where we can actually gather the experience in the moment through text or through, any type of, way that we can communicate or have a conversation at scale with the audience.
Tell me about that moment when you had that aha moment. This is what's missing in the business environment that led to the establishment of Qualtrics.
Yeah, I don't know that Qualtrics is an aha moment. I think it's a series of, different pivots and different growth challenges to get to a point where we're solving business problems. I remember when we started, no one really wanted to understand what the experience was. Organizations thought, hey, we know all the answers. And I think the world shifted where the best organizations who are having the most breakthroughs are really in tune that if we do this, this is how it will be received. So there's no surprises. And at the same time, as consumers, we're trained to say, hey, that was a bad experience. I'm never going to use that product or that company again. And switching companies is now at an all-time low. It's easy to do. And so organizations have to be right, whether it's an academic institution, whether it's a consumer product, whether it's an airline, whether it's a rental car, whether it's a fast food chain. If you're not delivering a superior experience, you won't be around very long.
Which leads me to my next question, and that is, when a company is able to anticipate what their audience is going to do to their customers, their employees, what the brand is, how the brand is going to be received, how the products are going to be received, what kind of an advantage does that give them in the marketplace? And conversely, what happens if they ignore all of that information?
Yeah, anticipate, Bob, is a great word because that's actually what we're allowing organizations to do. We're allowing them to be right. And every organization has people who are working hard, people that they bring in and they recruit who are developing great products. No one ever sets out to say, hey, I'm going to make it so we recruit a bunch of people and they're not happy at their job. Or we're going to launch a bunch of products that aren't going to resonate or going to work for the end user. No one ever says that. They all say, hey, we're going to go change the world, but 2/3 of product launches fail, right? There's 50% attrition, and the average tenure of an employee in the Bay Area right now is 18 months. No one ever set out with that strategy. So we're actually allowing people to anticipate, to know constantly how things are being received. And it's not just in that moment. It is always on. Because you can be great one day and horrible another. And so the ideas of living in a world where you're not constantly being in touch with how you're being perceived, those days are over.
What are the common principles at work in what Qualtrics can do for companies that employ you?
Yeah, so organizations are all being trained and have been trained over the last 20 years to line up around what we call operational data, which is OData, which is all the data that the systems are bringing to you to saying, hey, this is what's going on in your organization. And we're all looking at operational data. What Qualtrics does is it brings you another type of data. For the first time ever, we can, in the moment, understand the why. And we call this the X data, or the experience data, why things are happening. We know what happened in the past. We know that more people bought our product. We know that more people left our website and didn't buy. We know that this happened because we were able to see it as a result of our sale But we don't know why, and so we're bringing the why into the boardroom. And actually, if you look at where most surprises happen in business, it's not what happened, they can predict that, it's why. And
how do you do that? How do you get to the why of this equation?
Yeah, so this is what we do. I mean, we're a tech company. We have 450 really smart engineers all over the globe, and we ingest a ton of data, whether it's simple feedback data, whether it's unstructured data. So if you look at organizations like healthcare.gov, I mean, we have hundreds of thousands of people who are giving open-ended comments and feedback, and we're able to analyze those and help an organization take action. We're not trying to get the data just to understand, hey, this is why it happened. We're trying to say, okay, this is why it happened, and this is what you do next so you can get good. We've all had a bad experience where someone's reached in and corrected it. That is an opportunity. And so that's what Qualtrics does. And we power 200 financial institutions. We power, almost 20 different airlines around the world to say, hey, where's that moment where we can win a customer? Or where's that moment where our employees can reach out and help, turn a bad experience into a good one. And that's what we're all in the business for. And those brands that aren't competing on experience and it's not a top priority, they just won't be around. And we can go through every single industry and show where a new way has come up in every single industry, whether it's through transportation, whether it's hospitality, whether it's delivery, whether it's healthcare. An experience brand is coming up, whether it's the financial services or the way we trade and buy stocks. Everyone is after a new experience. I mean, you can't even walk around the city without a scooter or a bike because apparently walking was a bad experience, and now that's coming up. So we're being trained to look for these new experiences, and we're an experience generation. We absolutely live in an experience economy. People are spending more money on experiences than they are on commodities like it was 10 years ago. And so it's pretty fascinating. We live in a pretty interesting time.
Can you give me a specific instance, let's say in the hospitality industry, where information and data from Qualtrics, gathered by Qualtrics, synthesized and fed back to the company, led that company to make changes that changed their result?
Yeah, and so I'll give you a great example on airlines, for example. There's two strong examples. One example was we saw one airline that in one part of their flights or their legs in the morning, they were getting really bad feedback scores. And so they parachuted a team in there to say, hey, what was going on? And it was pretty clear that in that terminal, it was closed before 8 a.m. and no one could get coffee or donuts. And so people weren't happy. So the airline went out and put out orange juice, coffee, and donuts, and the score skyrocketed. So in the moment, they were able to have a hero's anticipation that was solved from employees going in and really being customer-centric. That same airline was going to make the seats shorter within the flight, right? Because they were saying, hey, revenue's going to go up this amount. But by bringing the customer into the process, they were right, and they were able to do it in a way that didn't cause an adverse customer reaction like most organizations do. And so that's just one simple thing on the airlines where actually, paying attention to the feedback in real time was able to drive a positive result. And it's not that they do it once, they're doing it every single day. This isn't an event. It's actually the way you do business now. And so you always need to be on, and you always need to be understanding the sentiment or what people are thinking.
I would imagine that the cost of providing coffee, juice, and donuts by the airline is a lot less than losing customers because they weren't happy with the experience.
100%. And people are trained right now that if they're not happy, they blow you up on social media, or they just say, hey, look, I'm never going to fly that again. I mean, it's amazing how a bad experience will change the way that we absolutely behave. I mean, that's why you get so many people not checking luggage and going through all that pain in the airport to go do that. But it's not just the airline industry. It's, consumer products. If you go on our website, you'll see that we, there's so many different products from Yamaha that they were deciding on a big keyboard on whether they should have a fader or actually a knob for people playing in front of large audiences. And so they brought the customer right into that, and they figured out quickly that they need a fader right there. And so
this is not a natural.
Yeah. When you're going there,
for a keyboard player.
So they were able to go through and do that in the moment. and be right. And so I think that every organization saying, whoa, this is a competitive advantage, and look at organizations like Amazon and others, this is how they operate.
Early on, when Qualtrics was just getting started, did you find it a difficult sell when you approached companies with this kind of in-the-moment data?
Yeah, I think the world shift, right? There's been a massive shift in the world. I remember in 2006 calling into a massive airline saying, hey, look, you need to have a pulse on every single touch point along the way, the entire journey. Because when you're evaluating an airline or you're giving feedback, or you think about the experience of an airline, you're not thinking about maybe the plane itself. It's from check-in all the way till you get your bag. Yeah. And we're finding that if someone's had a bad experience, often the time it's not whether the seat would go back or forward. They said, hey, look, if our customers are upset, they'll just call us. That was the feedback. And so now if you fast forward where that airline's a customer and almost every other airline is out there, is running on Qualtrics plus 9,500 other brands, it's becoming what you do. Everyone's trying to understand in the boardroom the why this is happening. And ultimately, if you can be right 9 out of 10 times, you're gonna be better off.
Customer experience, employee experience, brand experience, product experience. How do each one of those areas drive either the success or the failure of a company?
Yeah, so there's a couple things. I don't think there's a lot of education that needs to happen on why all of those are individually important. But as we go in from a technology, we walk into an organization, we find that data is being collected in a bunch of different platforms, if it's being collected at all. So when Qualtrics goes in, we say, wait a minute, these are the 4 core experiences of your business, right? If your customers are doing well and your employees are doing well, and your product and your brands are doing well, and you know exactly how to anticipate what's going to happen. And if something doesn't go the way you anticipated, you can be the first to know and go in and rescue in that moment, then you're going to be ahead of everyone else. And the fact that we can do it on one single technology and all the data is in one single spot so it lives on and they can build on it, that's why people are choosing Qualtrics, and that's why the growth happened to where it is, because we've basically taken 4 products and put them onto one single platform over the last 16 years. And there's really nothing like it out there.
There have been several entities that have tried to buy Qualtrics in the past, and you have just kind of given them the Heisman, as you said. But not so anymore. SAP is going to come in and buy Qualtrics. What do you get out of that, and what do your customers get out of that?
Yeah, so SAP is, we've entered an agreement, and that'll be done soon. And so we are definitely an SAP company now. And we're excited. I think there's a couple things. SAP, 2/3 of the world's products are actually made on SAP technology. If you look at, 90% of the transactions online come out of SAP. They're a massive organization, a European company. I mean, they've actually come into the U.S. much stronger in the last couple years. They're a $100 billion plus company, and they're excited about Qualtrics. And I think that's what's super exciting, is to have all of the backing of an organization that sees, hey, we're the masters and we own all the operational data. And with the experience data of Qualtrics on top of that, an organization can get a full picture of how to operate. They've got the X data and the O data together to be able to say, hey, this is what happened, now this is why, on the products and on every transaction online. And then what we get out of it, I mean, obviously we get the backing. I mean, we've always had backing, whether it was venture capital from the Bay Area, and now it's SAP. And so this is not something that's new to us. We were an Excel and Sequoia venture-backed company, right, where we had the 2 best venture capital firms in the world backing us. Now we have SAP backing us. And so, but they have a lot more resources. They have 13,000 sales reps. They're in every single country. There's offices all over the world that now we get to go play in. And I think lastly, they're betting massively on Utah. I think it's a very, very big deal that they've said, hey, not only do we want to take a huge bet on Qualtrics, but we want to do it in Utah. And help expand our footprint here, which is super exciting. I think it's super exciting for the state having a global company come in and do this, and I think it's going to benefit everyone.
You were born and raised in Utah, in Provo. Qualtrics is centered there, and you keep it centered there on purpose. Why do you do that?
Because it's close to my house. No. Look, I think it's who we are. I mean, I moved to Provo when I was just a young boy with my family. And I think that we've proven, and I think a lot of other people have proven, that there's not a lot you can't do from Utah. You know, I think this is the second largest acquisition of a private company in all of technology globally ever. And it happened in Utah. And so I don't think there's anything we can't do, so why not Provo? I mean, everyone in the Bay Area comes out here to ski every year, and now that there's a bunch of tech here, you know, I was just watching on TV and through social media how many people were stranded in Tahoe and couldn't get back. I mean, they should have all just flown out to Utah to ski, and, you know, we have jobs here now. Before, there wasn't any employment for them. But, you know, we relocated 150 different people last year from all over the world to come and live in Utah, and I think that's an exciting thing, and there's nothing we can't do, and I think this is just another example of that.
It is clear that you are a driven man, and I read that you analyze everything, every detail of to better yourself, better your company. What kind of details do you look at? What are the key points of interest for you that drive a better business and drive a better personal life for you?
Yeah, I think look, we've aimed very big. I mean, it's something that we do. We always talk about big bets and going big, and it's not an uncommon thing in tech, whether they're moonshot ideas, and then we go figure out how to make it happen. And I think that's something that we've been coloring kind of in that book and in those lines for a long time. I mean, if you look at, you know, a company started in the basement in Provo, Utah, to a, you know, an $8 billion sell, and then the ability to keep going with an organization like SAP, it's a pretty phenomenal story, but it's the same playbook all the time. We look at it and say, hey, what story do we want to be telling at the end of the year? You know, 12 months from now, what story, if we did this interview again, what are we going to be talking about? What's interesting? Mm-hmm. And it becomes pretty clear. It's like, okay, that was cool, but it actually isn't that interesting. Okay, go back to the drawing board. All right, and then we're going to go figure out how to go do it. And there's a million reasons why you can't do it, but what's more enjoyable is to figure out, like, okay, yes, we can do it. And that's how we've set Qualtrics up, and we've hired to fit that profile. We hire people who aren't afraid to do big things. And, you know, it's just how we behave. Because actually, those are the people you want to work with. Those are the people you want to go in every day that aren't going to be intimidated if something seems like they can't do. I mean, if you actually think about it, there's no real reason why we should be in this position. I mean, all of the cards were against us, from not raising venture funding for 10 years, to doing this ourselves, from starting in the academic market, to just the whole way we've gone about the story, to being in Utah. And it's pretty clear that it's much more of a mindset. And then if I think about it personally, you know, my strategy personally is in a complete allocation of where I spend my time. Right? I can say this is what I want to go do, or this is what I want to go be, or this is who I want to become. But reality is if my time's not spent in line with what I say I'm going to do, then it's not going to happen. And so I track my time very, very closely. You know, I analyze my time at the end of every quarter. I look at it and say, okay, wow, you know, I spent 13% of my time in meeting on this subject, and I'm surprised every time about where that allocation of my own personal resources go. You know, or this amount was with my family, this amount was here, and you know, I have to do that when you're juggling a lot. Or we have 2,100, 2,300 employees right now across 20 different locations. You've got to be very thoughtful about where you spend your time.
What principles drive the decisions that you make about where you allocate your time?
I don't know that there's principles, because I am a little bit of a fill player. It's like when I wake up in the morning and I want to go sit at breakfast for an hour, I'm going to go sit at breakfast for an hour. I think that's really important, where you have to listen to yourself and say, hey, I'm always changing up my routine. There's no way I could run the same routine all 12 months of the year. And I think we don't do that enough. We don't do that enough as we're scaling. But I don't have a set of principles of exactly where to allocate. I just want to know where I'm allocating. And then I'll adjust based on you kind of see real quickly whether you're on or off. And I think it's an exercise that everyone should go through, is just track at the end of each day, like, okay, where'd your time go? Oh my gosh, I spent 2 hours on social media today. Once you know that, you'll know, hey, look, that probably wasn't a good use of time. And it's really important. I know that, on the iPhone, the new iPhone, and you can actually see where you spend all of your time browsing. And I think people are blown away with it. And I ask people about it all the time. Like, where did you spend that time? Or how much time do you spend watching TV? Or how much time do you spend reading? And I think that'll help you be a little bit more productive, or a little bit more intentional, because it's not all about productivity. It's about, hey, really what makes you happy, and what makes it so at the end of the day you're like, whoa, like I added value to this world or to my life or to other people. And I think if we're intentional about it, then, and we know where we're spending time, then it'll go a lot better.
We had Gail Miller in here a few years ago, and I asked her about the sacrifices that she and Larry and their family made to build their empire. And I asked whether it was worth it. And she said to me, to her it wasn't. And to Larry, toward the end of his life, he felt like it wasn't. Do you ever feel like, at this point in your career, that you are giving too much to Qualtrics?
So first of all, I mean, what Gail and Larry have built it's been super phenomenal and inspiring to watch. And I think, I'm younger, right? I'm a little bit younger. I mean, life's happened pretty quickly. Although it's been 16 years, I still have young kids, and I get a chance to really dictate whether it's worth it or not. And I think this is one of the important parts of what we just talked about, is where you would go back and say it wasn't worth it would be on time allocation. And I've got to be extremely efficient when it comes to time allocation. So that's the part that either becomes worth it or not. And I do believe that if it all gets off track, there's really not a whole lot that's worth having regret in one of those areas. And so you've got to check in frequently, and you've got to check in often. Personally, I have zero regrets in how much I've given to Qualtrics and like how we've grown. I look at the impact that we've had. I look at the impact we've had on our 2,300 employees. I look at the families that have been blessed from everything that we've been able to do. And it's a team game, and we're all going together. And, fortunately or unfortunately, I need to lead by example. I also believe that, look, you're here to do big things, right? I think that, we've got an opportunity, and when the getting's good, go get it, right? I don't think it's always going to be good. I mean, we've built Qualtrics through 3 different economic cycles, and I think that we're in a phenomenal economic cycle at the moment, or at least we were 3 months ago. So how do you keep that going? How do you keep the economic cycle, and how do you get it while you can? Because and I do believe that my kids need to see me work.
Yeah.
Right. I think that's an important thing, and it's absolutely okay if I miss a game or two or not. That's totally appropriate, right? They need to see their dad work like everyone else in the world, and my parents missed a lot of my games, right? And I don't have any regret for that. And I think the boys turned out fine because they were working and they were busy, and I'm glad that they both went to school and got PhDs and did all that and worked hard when probably they didn't need to. And I don't know. That's just how I feel. I feel like, that's something that I can give to my children, and I think that they learn from that. They see it and they watch it. So, but I'm going to do it in a way that I'm not going to have a bunch of regrets, because I'm going to check in frequently and say, hey, is this playing a little off balance here? And then how do we flip it around? And if it gets to the point where it's all running me and I'm not running it, you've got to take control. You've got to take control. So,
how much of the success of Qualtrics can be attributed to luck?
Look, I think it's a good question. I can think of at least 10 or 20 different situations where it all could have crashed, right? At some point. I mean, we're all smart entrepreneurs. We're all great business people. I think we've got an unbelievable team, but I also think we're super fortunate. And the higher up I get in the tech community, in the tech world, there's a humility that exists within founders, where we're almost like stewards over the enterprises that we run. And, there's a lot that has to go your way. Now, it gets to a point where it's not all going to crash. We have 9,500 customers who get incredible value out of our platform. But hey, there could have been 20 or 30 different scenarios where either a key employee or, a founder or someone got sick, or we didn't get the break with a customer that we did that kind of kept us going. And so what you really have to do is look back and say, okay, all this has happened. Why is it happening? Like, what are you supposed to do with this? And I think that we've kind of built in our DNA that, as we become successful, we're going to try to remember those times and those breakthroughs, and how do we give back? How do we give back along the way? Let's not wait till the very end. Let's make that part of who we are, and kind of try to be as humble as possible about it. But at the same time, you're in a very competitive world, and those are polar opposite traits. Where you've got to be extremely gracious and humble, but at the same time, you've got to be cutthroat, and you're in a competitive environment, and if you stop for a second, everyone's going to run you over. Because the way technology is innovating, I mean, it's 20 to 30 times faster than it was 8 years ago when we were operating. And so you can't slow up for 1 second. And so it's pedal to the metal all the time. And so those are hard traits, but as a CEO, that's your job. Your job's to care, but not care too much. Your job's to grow at all costs, but also at the same time, make money, right? Your job's to be super, super confident and go and lead everyone, but also to be humble, right? And you've got to get really good at managing both sides of that, and that's hard. How do you be, lead by example, but also make sure that you don't have any regrets back at home or everywhere else? And that's what we're all trying to learn.
What is the key for you in being successful at that? Being cutthroat at one point and humble and understanding on the other.
Yeah, and I think cutthroat might be the wrong word, but look, I mean, the first thing about success is the key is not to let anyone else determine what it is, right? I determine what my own success is, and no one else in the whole world is going to tell me what success means to them for me, right? That is me and my family, and we decide with my wife and kids, like, okay, this is what it looks like for us, and we're just going to try hardest. And I think that's probably where it starts. I think once other people are determining what your success is or what they see for Ryan Smith or Ryan Smith should be doing, that's just a miserable life, right? And so you've got to be really comfortable that you can look yourself in the mirror and say, hey, look, I was a good dad this week. I was a good husband. I was good at Qualtrics. And I see a lot of people that can't define what success is, but they just live with all this guilt. And so, if I've got kids and I don't feel like I'm spending enough time with kids, well, I should be able to look at Sunday night and say, okay, this week, what's it going to be? What do I have to do to be successful with my 4-year-old? And it's like, well, I should be able to teach my 4-year-old how to ride a bike. I should be able to go on one, date with him, and we can go out and do something. Okay, at the end of the week, will that make me super happy and I feel like I killed it as a dad? And it was like, okay, yeah, all right, well, I can define success. That's a word of God. If no matter what I do, I'm going to feel like I'm a failure or I didn't spend enough time, that's a horrible way to live. So I think what we've tried to do is just be able to define what our own success is. And it's amazing how weeks add up and you get a lot more done instead of living with just this guilt that you can't do it. I mean, I just got back from lunch. I wanted to go see a friend's new office building, but I also wanted to go with lunch with another friend. And so I'm up here in Salt Lake, and I had an hour and a half, and so I called the one friend, picked him up, called the other friend, and said, order lunch in, and we just got it all done in one moment. And I was like, wow, that was a successful hour and a half. It was like a triple, right? 3 of us at lunch, food, new office building, and it was awesome. And so I think that, you've just got to double or triple up a lot. And that's why you'll see me a lot with my kids at different places, because why can't they come with me? I've never had someone try to kick them out of a business meeting or anything else. And, it's actually the opposite. Where my daughters, it's what I want them to see. I want them to come with me. And, I was just with them, talking with them this weekend where they were saying, do you remember that business trip I went on? When's my turn? And that's really cool. And I think we live in a world where people understand that. People are way more empathetic than they used to be about trying to do it all and doubling up.
With the success of Qualtrics also comes financial success and notoriety and wealth and business success, acumen. How has that changed you personally?
I mean, look, the world's changed, but I think Qualtrics is a little bit different story than some of these other companies or some of my peers out in the Bay Area where a lot's come very quickly. We've been doing this for 16 years. We made money the whole time. And so I think that we've had a much more slow drip effect and to be able to be acclimated to the world and the responsibility and everything that comes with it, because it's not all gold, right? And I think that, you just do the best you can, right? I mean, I think that, I think everyone else probably thinks it's a bigger deal than the people
you do.
than I do. The only difference is everyone else found out, right? But look, I think that we've been able to grow accustomed to everything that comes along with success. And like I said, I mean, that's super successful to some people. For me and who we are, that's not what validates success. I think what validates success is that we can live without regrets and we can say, hey, look, we did everything that we were supposed to do to be successful in every aspect of our life. I mean, if I just scale the business side of my life, that's not very successful.
You talk about giving back. Five for the Fight is one way that you're doing that.
Yeah.
Kind of give us a thumbnail sketch, a profile of how that whole enterprise, that whole sponsorship is going and how it's benefiting the research in cancer.
Well, it's interesting. As we went on, you said you've had Gail and John Huntsman here, and we've been a strong supporter of Huntsman Cancer for a long time. It's actually, we started Qualtrics because my father had cancer, and we always said that if we had any resource, we would give back. And I remember, going up and presenting a check, $1,000 for every employee. And at the time, we had 1,000 employees, so it's $1 million to John Huntsman, and said, "Hey, look, we really appreciate what you're doing. Keep doing it." And he kind of looked at me and said, "Hey, Ryan, what you're doing at Qualtrics is really good."
Qualtrics?
But what you're going to do for cancer is what you're going to be known for. And I was like, whoa, don't throw that out here. I don't need more challenge. But I was like, whoa, here's a man who literally, and I don't think the people in Utah understand. If you go up there, you're like, okay, this person financed and donated hundreds of millions of dollars for charity. And I've heard the story from bankers say he borrowed money to give it. Everyone just thought, oh, wow, this person's a billionaire and could do this. But he actually borrowed money to give to charity. How many people do we know that are going to go pull out a second mortgage and do that? And they might say, hey, look, that's a different world. No, it's not. I know people up there at the time that said, whoa, that's crazy. Yeah. But he believed in the cause. And we said, wow, it's not going to be one John Huntsman that's going to come on. And by the way, this isn't his fight. He did the fight to help my father and save my father's life, right? And other people I know who have all been up there, it's all of our fights. And so we said, how can we make it so we're all involved? And, the Utah Jazz had sent out a jersey patch with the Qualtrics logo on it. And, Mike Mon, who I work closely with, him and I came up with this idea of Five for the Fight. And then we had this idea, what if we put it on the patch? What if we bought the patch as a company, but donated the patch to Fight for the Fight? And then, I called my investors and I said, hey, we're going to make a pretty big sponsorship, but we're not going to put our logo anywhere. It's going to be for cancer research. Like, well, can't you just hang the Q under Fight for the Fight? And we said, no. And it's been amazing what's happened, because Fight for the Fight has become something where all the Jazz players have gotten behind it, where there's 17 to 20 different organizations in Utah who have taken Five for the Fight. If you look at every Layton construction truck, it's got Five for the Fight, and it's Layton Construction, fiveforthefight.com. It's what they're doing for cancer. Right. Every organization should have something for cancer research. All of the money, 100%, we provide this first sponsorship, all of it goes to cancer. And we had a Jazz game last year where we raised $1.1 million in one game.
Wow.
Against the Celtics, where everyone can go and contribute, and they can just write $5 on their hand. And so now when someone has cancer, instead of saying, oh, that's too bad. I mean, I had that happen to me today. Someone came up and said, I've got a brain tumor, one of our employees. And I was like, I'm going to do Fight for the Fight for you, right? And you send it back and you say, hey, look, this is what it is. And everyone knows someone. And so the idea is that we're going to get 10 million people to give $5, and everyone will be part of the cause. And I hope that some of those people are like we were and maybe they go and do something similar to Fight for the Fight. And we're the first sponsorship between the NFL and Major League Baseball or the NBA that is for a cause. And watching the Jazz and the NBA work together to make this happen, it's been truly one of the highlights. And I think back to that conversation with John Huntsman. I was like, whoa, like we did it. Like and I had the chance to present this to him before he left us. Was, look, here's an idea where we can get everyone involved, and here's an idea with basketball, which he loved. And he's like, you brought them both in one day. And I was like, let's go. And so I think that's another idea of a big bet. And I think, to be honest with you, I think it's our responsibility. I mean, you talk about success, you talk about being a tech founder and an entrepreneur. Like, our responsibility is to help out. And I think if you look at everything that's happening on Silicon Slopes, we've got a big summit coming up. If you look at all of the companies, I just saw that we're in the works for having computer science in every single school by 2022, right? 3 different courses, and the state of Utah's kicking in, $4 or $5 million. But I know for a fact that all of the other companies are going to fund way more than that. And then if you look at all the jobs and all of the taxes and everything that comes in to help, and then the chance to give back to make it better, Utah's a special place. And I think this type of stuff happens here, which is what's super exciting.
Tell us about the symposium, the summit coming up in March. You've got Oprah Winfrey, you've got President Obama, you've got Sir Richard Branson, you've got Dan Reynolds, and many, many others. What is going to come of that?
Well, look, every year we basically bring our customers together and potential customers. We'll have, 10, 12,000 people coming into Utah, and we have phenomenal speakers. It's the Experience Management Summit, where the customer, the product, the brand, and the employee experience all comes together. And all the people you mentioned have either one way or another set an experience. Last year we had Lin-Manuel Miranda on stage, who transformed all of Broadway with Hamilton. Right, talking about the experience that he was trying to provide. And all of the brands are looking and saying, hey, I'm running BMW, or I'm running LL Bean, or I'm running this. What experience am I trying to do? How do I anticipate? How do I get better? And they get to learn from each other. I mean, you look at Virgin and everything that Richard Branson has done. I mean, what an amazing chance to hear someone who's absolutely transformed the experience. And that's what we're doing, and we're bringing them all together, and it's here in Salt Lake. And everyone's saying, hey, well, you can't have a crowd that big in Salt Lake. It doesn't fit. No, it's fitting, and it's working really, really well. And if you look at, Obama hasn't been here since 2015. If you look at what we're doing, it's happening. And that's just another one of those situations where it's saying, hey, what story do we want to tell? What story do we want to tell next year? We had a phenomenal summit last year, and we said, whoa, we got to go and figure out how to tell another story the next year. And it's a pretty good one that's coming up. And the next year we're going to have to do something that's even more transformational. And that's what makes it fun. And having now the backing of SAP and wanting to go encourage that's amazing. That is absolutely amazing to have the backing of an organization like that says, hey, not only do I want to build out experience management in the category, but I want to do it through Qualtrics, and we have all of the support. It's such good news for Utah, for the state, and everything else.
Final question. Look into your crystal ball, 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road. Where will Qualtrics be at that point?
Well, I think it's a good question, and I wish I had a crystal ball, right? Because I think if you would have told me 16 years ago that we would be sitting here with an $8 billion offer and combining with SAP, I think there would have probably been very few people who would have believed that, right? I tell you what, as I look out, my goal is we have 9,500 organizations that are using Qualtrics to power experiences. We want to have every single organization in the world, whether you're a government institution, whether you're NASA, whether you're every K through 12 or higher ed organization, whether you're every product company, being able to be on the Qualtrics platform, to be able to have a conversation at scale with the people that matter most to you. And we're a long, long, long way from that. We have pockets. We have a ton of K through 12 institutions. We've got 250 government agencies. We've got 200 financial institutions. You go through it, but we're just getting started. We are absolutely just getting started. And so I'd love to see that. And I think that we'll continue to pivot Qualtrics to work on this problem of experience. And I'll be honest with you, I can't tell you how we're going to be communicating and how we're going to have conversations in the future. It might all be on WeChat or something else, but I promise that we will be there allowing our customers to be able to get data in the moment and probably doing a bunch of other things. And I think it's going to get smarter. I think it's going to get easier. I think the things that we used to wonder about will now all be automated through the Qualtrics system, and it will make us be better. And I think it ultimately helps the consumers to be able to have a much better life.
Well, Ryan Smith, CEO, co-founder of Qualtrics, thank you so much for being part of 3 Questions.
All right. Thanks.